guys, it's Angie from Feeling a Little Bookish. I'm just here to bring you my March wrap up. March was a pretty good month as far as reading goes. I mean, in general, it was. I read 10 books, which I think is pretty good, for me at least. And they were all really good books. Some of them were really long as well. So, you know, kudos to me for reading 10 books this month. Although January I read 13, so. But it's not a competition. It's just, you know, better than February. So the books that I'll be talking about today are Front Street Porter by Nina. Front Street Porter was a really good read. It wasn't really romance based. It was more of just like a regular book about, you know, these 5 brothers. There was some romance in it. So it was about Lake, who's the oldest, Vant, Rec, Dem, and Sav. Those aren't their real names. Well, that's Lake's real name. Vant is Avant. And I don't remember the other 3's real names. I read the book right at the beginning of March, so it's kind of just like, whoa, a blur right now as far as their names. The book is about, like I said, the 5 brothers. Their mothers, they all have different mothers, except Dem and Sav have the same mom, but Lake, Vaunt, and Rec have different mothers as well. So their moms haven't really been in the picture. So their dad also, by the way, their dad was a big time drug dealer. So he's always set them up for, you know, not only success, but also if he were to die, they have to be prepared. So from the moment that they were all born, he would take pictures and videos, and he would always tell Lake, who's the oldest, you know, when my time comes and essentially I'm not going to be here, that you have to be in charge of your brothers. Unfortunately, their dad does die, so Lake is then in charge of his 4 younger siblings, which is hard. I mean, when you're 19, you think to yourself, okay, I'm old enough, I can do all of these things, you know, I'm an adult, all this stuff. But once you're past 19 and, you know, for example, like I'm 32, when I think back to being 19, I could never imagine myself in a situation where I had to take care of 4 younger siblings by myself. Okay, he has the means, you know, he's in charge of his dad's drug business. However, there's also an emotional aspect to it. You know, every one of his siblings needs something, whether they want to admit it or not. You know, Dem, for example, Dem has mental health issues as well, and so that within itself is a job. So it's a lot of work for Lake, but you know, he does have help from his aunt, and she helps him take care of the boys. She is in charge of the younger 2. They live with her because if the child care services were to find out that the younger 2, who are obviously underage, were living with Lake, then they could possibly be taken away and put into the foster system. So anyway, they go through these challenges of being together as brothers, and then for Lake, it's taking care of his 4 younger brothers. And a lot of people think that Lake is, you know, like he doesn't show emotion, but it's because of some issues that he went through as a child, and as well as, you know, he's not here for emotions. He has a job, and his job is to take care of his family and his younger brothers. So you know, when it comes to love, it's not something on his plate. Whereas Avant and Rec, they are just, you know, they're teenage boys. They're sowing their wild oats, and Dem and Sav is the genius one out of the brothers, and, you know, Lake is trying to keep them in school and keep them on the right track, so that way they don't have to rely on the drug business. It's a good book. I liked it. It's definitely something different from what I'm used to reading, but I read it because it was. I had saved On Us by Nina on my Kindle to read, but then I was reading other reviews and realized that Front Street Porter is what you want to start with before you move on to the On Us series, which is 3 books by her. I still have to read On Us. I'm thinking I might do that in April. We'll see. So, it's a good read. The next book that I read was Kiss Me First by B.Doe. This one is a kind of a prequel to Kiss to Conquer from the Blairwood University series. But however, you don't need to read that series to understand this book. Obviously, it's a prequel. And even if you skip this book, you can go right into Kiss to Conquer. You're not missing much. It's more of like an introduction to who Emmett and Kate are, and Emmett and Kate are in the Blairwood University series. So Kate moves to town with her sister. She doesn't have the best relationship with her mother. Her mother is an actress, and you know she doesn't really care to be a mother. I don't, you know, and it happens. So instead of, you know, trying to be a mom to these 2 teenage girls and trying to take care of them, she allows them to move in with her sister in the small town that she was from. So while they're there, Kate starts school and she literally bangs into Emmett on her first day of school. And he is like the like popular guy at school. He's a football player, you know, everyone likes him, all the girls like him. But she doesn't pay attention to him. You know, she's not enchanted by him when she first meets him. Obviously she thinks he's cute and stuff, but it's not like this, whoa, oh my god, he's so hot, I need to know him thing. So then he, you know, that piques his interest. He's like, okay, all right, I've got my eyes on her. Eventually they get to know each other, but she is not there to necessarily, you know, have a boyfriend. She just wants to complete school and just go on her way because she's just had such a tough life. She didn't know who her dad was. She didn't, you know, have the best relationship again with her mother, and then she's had to take care of her sister because her sister has her own issues as well, and so it's this big thing. She just wants to finish school and just be on with her life, and it was great. Their chemistry was great. I liked the romance. It was slow burn, definitely slow burn, but it was worth it. I like B.Doe's writing. I like the books that I've read so far. I find that they are all slow burn, but not slow burn where you're like, oh, what is happening? What is going on here? So it was a really good book to read. The next book that I read was The Touch of a Villain by Renee. I was so excited. If you remember from my March TBR, I was so excited to read this book, and I'm so happy I read this book. This book was super hot. It was definitely of my league, of my lane. I'm all flustered just talking about it. Anyway, we follow Josie, who is the daughter of someone in town that is not really liked. They're all rich, by the way. It's like a rich town. So she moves there. She has 1 more year left of school. She just wants to do it, and then again, like, just move on with her life. Just finish school, do what she's got to do, and just move on. Her mom had unfortunately passed away, so now she's in the hands of her father until she has to, you know, finish school and whatnot. So she moves to Claremont Bay, and she moves in with her dad and her stepmom and her half brother. So her half brother's name is Lucas, and so he's also one of the popular kids at school and whatnot. One night they're at a party, and she happens to just get bored at the party. She decides to go and take a walk down by the beach, because where the party was at, the beach is basically their backyard. So she's gone down to the beach, and she meets this very handsome guy. And he doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know who he is until she's, he says his name is Beck. Obviously, she's new to town. She doesn't know anybody. So, they have their moment. And then her brother decides to call her name while she's on the beach with this boy. And Beck then realizes who Josie is, and he completely hates her. He's like, basically turns into a bully. And by bully, I mean he is a true bully. Like, she decides to get a job, even though she doesn't have to, and her dad is like, no, you don't need a job, I can take care of you. She decides to get a job because A, she doesn't want her dad to take care of her because she hasn't had the best relationship anyway with him. And B, she just wants to pave her own way. She doesn't want to have to rely on anyone. So she starts a job at the country club, and Beck's family owns the country club. Actually, Beck's last name is Claremont, so you can only imagine what he owns in this town, which is the whole town. So she starts working there, and he treats her so bad. He's just a terror, you know what I mean? He's not as bad as some of the other guys I've read in books, such as Cade from the Gravestone Elite series, which is coming up. But he's bad. He's like, just mean to her. And, she stands up for herself. She's like, listen, I don't know what your problem is. I don't know what your problem is with my brother. I don't know what your problem is with my father, but I didn't do anything. I don't even know you. So stop being an asshole to me, basically. Eventually, there is chemistry there. There is. I mean, like, most of the dark romance books I read, the guy is such a jerk, but you can't resist it. You end up with the good guy, but who doesn't like a bad boy? So, the chemistry is there. The chemistry is so hot. They don't, it's a slow burn to the very sexy scenes. They don't actually do the deed until closer to the end of the book, but then that cliffhanger at the end of the book, you're like, oh man, I cried while I read this book, especially towards the end. I was like, oh my god, like, what is happening? I feel so sad. You just feel the feelings, and you just feel so sad for Beck, and you just feel so sad for Josie, and you just want to hug him because, you just feel bad for him. And I cannot wait till the second book comes out. This was a super good read. The next book that I read was Salvation by Melissa Ellen. This one had to do with law enforcement. I don't read a lot of books that have even like a special agent or an FBI agent or anything like that in them. But when I read the blurb for this, when I signed up for the ARC, I was like, okay, this actually sounds really good. It's more of a romantic thriller book. It's about Allie, who is a special agent. So I want to say it was 10 years, but I think it was 12 years. Anyway, 10 to 12 years earlier, her father is murdered. And obviously, when a parent is murdered, you're not, whether you decide to be an agent yourself or you're just, you know, living your life, you can't get over the fact that that parent, you know, has been murdered, especially if the murderer hasn't been caught. So she becomes a special agent, and she wants to figure out what happened to her dad. You know, it's a cold case. They just chalked it up to a robbery and him being at the wrong place at the wrong time. But she knows that there's something else to it. So she meets this guy at the bar, and his name's Merrick, and they hit it off right away. She's like, you know, she hasn't had time to have a relationship and stuff because she's just not concentrated on that. She just wants to do her job and also figure out who murdered her dad. So she meets this guy at the bar. She's like, you know what, whatever. Let me just do this. Let me just do whatever I need to do with this guy on this one night. However, he doesn't want to leave her alone. So eventually she figures out that he is an assassin. But he's falling for her, and he doesn't want to just kill her and be done with it. He really starts to care about her. So he helps her figure out what happened to her dad. And I was shocked as to what happened to her, like who killed her dad. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was very well written. And it is part of a series, but you don't need to read the other books to understand what's going on in this one, because the characters from the previous books are in this are in Salvation. So you'll actually and each person that comes in, there's like a bit of a backstory, so you understand who they are and what they're doing in the book, why they're helping her out and whatnot. So this was a really good book. This was I think it kind of made me want to read more romantic thrillers and romance novels that have to do with law enforcement. So I mean, as long as I find the right ones, then I'll read another one. The next book that I read was Vandal by Rachel Leigh, and this was the third book in the Redwood Rebels series. So this book is based on Tommy, and it's Tommy's turn to get revenge, and his revenge is on Wyatt. So Wyatt, if you remember, is Marnie's best friend, and he was in the previous two books as well. So so Tommy and Wyatt had a moment, and that moment was captured on, I guess, video, someone's cell phone, but yeah, video. And essentially Tommy wants to figure out if it was Wyatt that did it. He thinks it is. He's like 99% that it's Wyatt that's blackmailing him and all this stuff. And but then Wyatt's like, I don't know. Like, I didn't do it. I didn't set it up. So that in itself is a whodunit as well. So who's the person that's out to get Tommy and Wyatt? And they have a relationship as well, and he terrorizes Wyatt, and Wyatt just wants to love him, and it's a really good book. I like that Wyatt was there for Tommy when the time came for him to, let everybody know that he was gay and that him and Wyatt were a couple and whatnot. I like that they were there for one another, and I like that Tommy told everybody on his own time, and it wasn't like right at the beginning of the book. Like, it was just a build-up of getting to that point, and it was really good. I liked it a lot. The next book that I read was Cravings by Scarlett Leva. It was really short. I think it was 24 to 28 pages, but it was more of like a taste, like a little backstory as to who Ryan and Simone are. The author's first book is coming out in July, and it's called Wonderland. So this was like again like a backstory of who Ryan and Simone are. So they were always best friends, but then something happens at Ryan's 11th birthday, and that causes him and Simone to just stop talking. And then years down the line, they're back in each other's lives, and then it basically ends after they have like a moment together, and you're just like, whoa, so what's gonna happen now? And that's why you have to wait for Wonderland, which comes out in July. So the next book that I read was Off Limits, which is book 1 in the newest series by L.A. Cotton. I want to say it's called the Rixon High series. I always get them mixed up with the series that she did. I think it was called Raider High or Rixon Raiders. Anyway, this series, Off Limits, is the first book, and it centers around Caden, who is the son of another popular football player from the previous Raider series. And Lily, who is the daughter of Jason Ford, who was the NFL legend and like football player from the previous series as well. So it's basically their kids. And so Caden is clearly not liked. So he's from Rixon East, which is the other school. It's different from Rixon High. So Rixon East, they actually suffer a fire at their building. So about, I think it was more than half of the students had to go to Rixon High and be there, including the football team. So what happened was Caden is the quarterback from Rixon East, and then you have I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. But anyway, the players from that football team have to share spots with the players from Rixon High's football team. And their coach is Jason Ford, and his daughter is Lily. And Lily is like, you know, a good girl, but she does suffer from some mental health issues as well, which was brought upon by the teasing and like just the terror from someone that used to be her friend at school. So she has her own things that she's dealing with, and you know, her family, so her dad, her mom, and her sister are always keeping a close eye on her, and she's really close with her cousins, and so she meets she meets Caden, and you know, they share a moment in a shed. However, he doesn't know who she is. She knows who he is. She's heard of him. I mean, everyone's heard of Caden, but he doesn't know who she is until sometime after, like later on that night. And he essentially decides to stay away from her because he knows that his dad and her dad don't like each other, and they're basically rivals, even though they are, you know, older and haven't been in high school forever. So, but they're so taken up with one another. So, like, Caden and Lily, they have this fantastic romance, and it's a slow burn, and you just feel for her. You feel like giving her a hug, and he's such a gentleman. Like, he doesn't pressure her to do anything that she doesn't want to do or that she feels uncomfortable with, which is amazing because, let's face it, we've all been in a situation where we feel pressured to do things that other kids are doing when you're a teenager, but you know, they're 18, so they're also in their last year of school, and so there's a lot of things that, you know, when you're in your last year of school, you're just like, okay, I gotta do A, B, and C, and I need to do it before I go away to college or university and whatnot. But they do form a relationship. However, they want to keep it hidden, which causes a lot of problems. Caden wants to tell her dad that, you know, they're getting close and whatnot, and eventually they do end up in a relationship, but she's refusing to because she's so used to things imploding and things getting bad that she's like, you know, what if this doesn't turn into anything? Eventually it does, you know, and it's beautiful, and you know, things happen and people are upset, but everything's worked out, and I'm really looking forward to book 2 of the series. There is a bit, actually the ending of the first book ends on a cliffhanger, but it's not a cliffhanger of Caitlyn and Lily, but it's a cliffhanger of who the next book is going to be based on, and it was a good cliffhanger. The next book that I read was Let Me Ride by Monica Walters. Oh, okay. So this book was so... Okay, first of all, it's an age gap. And by age gap, I'm talking 17 years. And it centers around Aston, like Aston Martin, and Vita. And Vita is the older one. She is... I can't remember if she was 43 or 45. And then he was either 27 and 28. But there's a 17-year gap. So I think she was 44 actually. Or 45. And he was 27 or 28. One of them. But, so Vita is like this. She's never been married. She doesn't have kids. And I say it like that because... I don't want to spoil it actually, but yeah, so she moved out of town as soon as she finished high school. She just moved out of her small town in Texas. I think it's called, I want to say it's called Nome. I read this book last week. I think it's called Nome, and so she moves out of the town and she goes, I think it was to Dallas, and she's working, you know, she graduated. She's a nurse, all that, but she doesn't want to work at hospitals anymore because that's not the life that she enjoyed living. When you're a nurse at a hospital, obviously you have to work any shift, long shifts, you know, 12-hour days, sometimes more. So she wants to slow it down a bit and you know, work at clinics and whatnot. Tragedy strikes and she has to go back home. So she has to take her car to the mechanic shop to get fixed, and so that's when she meets Aston, and she knows right away that he's younger than her, but she thinks like, you know, maybe 38, so I guess like 6 years younger than she is. So they hit it off and they literally have sex like later that day. Anyway, so he is basically sprung and he wants to see her again, and he's like, she's different, she's a woman, she's got everything under control, she's not about all these games. He finds her on TikTok as well. She loves TikTok. She does like all these challenges on TikTok. And so so he's like completely enamored by her, and she's just like, I don't have time, I don't want a relationship, I don't need this, you're young, let's just keep this casual. But eventually we know what's gonna happen. They end up falling for one another, and they become a thing. But it's not easy because there's things that come out of the woodwork. This book also has to deal with child abuse and rape, like not rape on page, but where rape was previously done to other characters in the book, and someone from Vita's past comes back, and you would think with what happens he'd be deterred. He would just be like, okay, I'm over it. But he's like, no, I love this woman and I want to be there for her. But she's the one that's like, oh my god, he's so much younger. But then I thought about it and I was like, okay, I'm 32, so that's like me having a fling with someone who's like 22, because I'm not gonna go any younger, let's be real, I would feel really weird about it, because obviously you're at different points in your life as well. She's almost at the age of, 50, and he hasn't even hit 30 yet. So it's like this big thing to her, which is understandable. But he's also showing her that, he's successful. He will be there for her. He doesn't have, baggage. He doesn't have kids. I mean, he has other women that are crazy about him, but they're not, up front and center. And another thing too is that before she left town, before she graduated from high school, there was a lot of people talking about her and rumors were spread. So that's why she also despises having to come back to town. But and so that makes her feel like if she were to be in a relationship with him, that would cause people to talk some more. And also, his mom hates Vida. They were in school together. I think his mom was a year older, I want to say. Yeah. And so she has like this vendetta against Vida for a reason that you'll find out if you read the book. I really like Monica Walters' writing, and it wasn't long. I think it was, I want to say it was like 180 pages. It wasn't that long. I think it took me like a few hours to read it one night. So it was a good length. But she's definitely a great writer. And then the next book that I read was The Sound of Temptation by Dylan Allen. I had to put my head down because this book... Okay, so I had so many feelings about this book. So many. So, first of all, I didn't cry. I thought I would because of the context, but I didn't cry. So that surprised me. But I felt a lot of the feelings. And I've realized that depending on the certain books that I read now, depending on certain books that I read now, I feel a lot of feelings. And it's not even real people. Something's going on with me. But so this book, man. Okay, so it starts with we meet Carter and Beth. So Carter and Beth meet one summer when they're 19, and they have this like whirlwind romance for that summer. So like it was like 3 months. And then he goes back to New York, and before he leaves though, they make a promise to be with each other and to be in each other's lives, because they basically fell in love that summer. Carter's dad shows him something, and then that turns into this whole misunderstanding. And instead of just asking Beth, like I feel any normal guy would do, but then again, guys are just weird. So he doesn't ask her if it's her or whatever he saw. He just doesn't ask her about it. So then he just ignores her, and they go 10 years without even, talking to each other or anything. And he's a famous singer, and she comes from a rich family, but she loves art, and that's what she wants to do with her life. But her dad is basically controlling her life, and her dad is mean. Her dad is a terrible dad. Her dad is like, I've never read a dad in a book worse than hers. And there's been a few that I've read that have been pretty bad, but her dad is like the scum of the earth. So anyway, 10 years pass, and they're back in each other's lives again, because Beth makes a deal with someone so that she can control her life and make her dad happy at the same time and all this stuff. And so Carter finds out this thing with Beth, and he, is a recovering addict as well. Like he was doing drugs, and he was in rehab and all this stuff. And so they end up, he has to go home, and by home I mean to Winsome, which is where he met Beth. That's where Beth is. and she wants to go to New York because her dream was to always go to New York. Anyway, Carter has to go and handle some stuff in Winsome. So he ends up back in Beth's path. And so this is where, 10 years later, they start being in one another's lives again. Oh my God, there are so many feelings in this book. Like, I don't even know how to express it. So anyway, Beth and Carter are back in each other's lives. And she's like, you broke my heart. Why would you do that? What did you do? And he's like, well, you broke my heart. And then she's like, what did I do? So then he says to her what he thinks that she did based on what his dad showed him. And then she's like, all you had to do was ask me. And when she said that to him, I was like, yes, all he had to do was ask. Sorry. This was the moment of the book where I was like, oh. So anyway, they have their love, it goes on. And obviously there's a lot of hurdles in the way. And that deal that Beth had made, that happens because they go through something else, and that something else is like, whoa, this is shocking. But then in the back of my mind, I was like, no, there is no way that they have to do this. Like, their relationship is happening like this. No, this cannot be real. But it was so heartbreaking. Like, this whole book took me on like a roller coaster of feelings. Even the ending, I was like, oh my God. And the love that they had for one another, it was just magical. Like, it was magical on so many levels. And I was like, wow, imagine feeling an epic love like that, like going through an epic love that spans a decade and then years after that, and you're like, oh my God. I loved it. It was a great book. And the final book that I read was Tarnished Crown, which is book 2 in the Gravestone Elite series by Caitlyn Dare. I read this in one sitting, basically. And it has to do, so it starts the morning after the ending of book 1, so that cliffhanger where Bexley's like, what happened? Mia's pissed off, and Kate is like, mwahahaha, I've got everybody now. So Bexley is officially a member of Quinctus, him and Alex, and which is the like secret society. And so Mia is still promised to Cade. The book takes you on a journey of Bexley and Mia trying to figure out if they can be together, trying to figure out what Cade is, look, what is his problem? Like, Cade here, okay, so after I read the first book, I was like, oh, there's some redeeming qualities in Cade from the first book. No, maybe he'll be a good guy in the second book. No, it was a lie. He was not a good guy in the second book. If anything, he was 100 times worse. And so I think he's going to stay a villain up until the third book, because there's 3 books in this series. So I don't think he's ever going to redeem himself, especially after the way that this book ended. I was like, what? No. Give me Bexley. I want to hug him. But anyway, Cade is a jerk. He's still a jerk. And Bexley and Mia, they just need love. They just need each other. They love each other so much. And there's so many points in this book where you're just like, I want to hug you, Bexley. I want to hug you, Mia. Please be together. Please find a way. And the good thing is, too, that they have allies within Quinctus. So there's other members who don't want to be part of it and just want to go and live their life. Because once you're in that secret society, you cannot leave it. Like, it's like a birthright, like a family thing, and if you leave it, you can't come back. And you can't get the perks of being in it. And you have to leave town. Like, you cannot come back and try and integrate yourself into their lives and stuff again, because it's not going to happen like that. So yeah, I'm excited for book 3. I think it comes out in April, like closer to the end of April, I want to say. Yeah, so that's all that I read for March. Let me know what you guys think about any of the books that I read that are featured in this video. Let me know in the comments below. As usual, I'll leave the titles of all the books mentioned in this video in the description. And don't feel free to subscribe as well. Take care. Bye.